What are you made of? What are you made of? You often hear that when when people either they're going in a sports team or they're about to be tested in some way, or someone may say, "What are you made of?" What is are you made of the strong stuff, or are you made of the something weak? And we're going to look at the things perhaps that we're made of. It's important to make sure that we build ourselves upon things that are going to last forever, not things that are going to just be around for a short period of time. So we're going to open here 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and we'll start in verse 12. It says here, now if any man build upon his foundation gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If any man's work abide, which he has built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. Know you not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? And you kind of think of the different kind of. I mentioned a little bit about whether you're going to sports or you're going into something else. You say, "What are you made of?" And you think of marathon runners and other kind of these athletes that do like amazing things. What's that one where they do running, swimming, and cycling? Triathlon athletes and all that amazing stuff that they can do with their body. And they work hard, they train, they get up early in the morning, they have a good diet, and they make sure that they're disciplined, and that's can be a difficult thing. And they're made of tough stuff, strong stuff. And when the race comes along, and when the heat comes on, and when it starts getting tough, they can get through that and they can get past that fire, so to speak, as we read here. And you look at perhaps even soldiers. I often use soldiers as a metaphor because we are soldiers of the Lord. And you look at if you go see a soldier who's never been trained, then you kind of unfortunately see that in the war in Ukraine, and obviously not here to pick sides, of course. And you see the emergency that was on, and there's some people went into war without very little training. And you don't last long in war if you don't have good training and if you don't work hard. And you see soldiers, they work hard because they know that they need to, and they don't just work hard, but they work hard with their brothers in arms next to them, because they keep each other alive. And we ourselves, we're going through this world, and we collect things and we kind of do things in this world, and want to make sure that we're made of tough stuff, because spiritually things are going to get tough. People kind of rejoice, or perhaps they moan about whatever a politician is in, but we know what the Lord has said, that difficult times will come, that our children will be disobedient to the parents, and all of those things that it says are going to come in the last days. And we know that there's a plan for us and a plan for that, and we're going to make sure that we get through that fire, that we're going to survive through that, that it's going to be made of tough stuff. And the things that we collect on this world, the things that we kind of gather, whether it's through work or whether it's through family, whatever it is, what worth do we put on that? What kind of value do we put on that? Gold and precious stones, so to speak, spiritually, they don't corrupt, they last. And those are the things, the precious things spiritually, are the things that we need to build ourselves on. And if you look into the monetary system of the world, it's built upon, at the moment, nothing. It used to be built upon the gold standard. It used to be the standard of the money system, so that it had a worth, it had a meaning to it. But now it's all numbers on a computer somewhere, on a hard drive somewhere. And that's the worth of the money. And at any moment, as we've seen crashes around the world, that's happened in the past, 2008 and other kind of times, of course, that the money becomes worthless and becomes nothing. And when people build their whole lives based on that, then they don't see a way out. And unfortunately, a lot of people do themselves in because they can't see past the that disaster. And we know that we have something far more precious than anything this world can give us, whether it is money or whether it is fame or fortune or whether it's not being made fun of because you're a Christian. I know when I was young, it was quite often you'd be made fun of because you're a Christian. I'd be called Moses and all sorts of things and be mocked. But we've got to make sure we're strong and that we can get past all that and get through all that. And because we are the temple of God, aren't we? And what we put into ourselves, into our mind, whatever it is, that's what's going to last, and that's what we want to last. And we want to make sure that when the Lord returns, that we've got something to show for it, and that everything we've done is not burnt up by the fire. And that's what this scripture is talking about. Let's go to Jonah, if you will, and we'll go through just a quick kind of um, example. Jonah, of course, we know the story. Just bear with me. Jonah was called to for a certain task of the Lord. He was called to Nineveh to pass judgment upon them or to warn them of a judgment that's going to be passed upon them. And instead of doing what the Lord asked him to, Jonah goes the other way and goes to Tarshish and he runs from the Lord, doesn't he? We know that story where he gets into a boat. The boat starts to have trouble. They start to throw stuff overboard in a boat, and the boat's still sinking and still having trouble. And they start to pass lots, or they start to try to find out who's the cause of their troubles at the moment. And Lot passed on to Jonah. And then Jonah admitted that he'd run from the Lord. And we don't know whether these people were Jews or whether they were others, but most people back then knew there was a higher power. They knew that there was something out there. So they feared that, you know, Jonah's God is a one with power. And so after much debate, Jonah ended up being going overboard. Ended up getting swallowed by a fish, a large fish, and of course, there's debate of what that fish may be. We don't need to get into that. So that's kind of story at the moment. He's in a belly of this great fish, whatever it is, and he's in a depth of the ocean. And we're going to go through this whole chapter here in chapter 2 about Jonah's prayer and what he ended up doing when he's at the lowest point. Verse 1, it says, Then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God out of the fish's belly, and said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me, sorry. Out of the belly of hell cried I, and thou hearest my voice. For thou hadst cast me into the depth, into the deep, in the midst of the seas, and the floods compassed me about. All thy billows and thy waves passed over me. Then I said, I am cast out of thy sight, yet I will look again toward my holy temple. The waters compassed me about, even to the soul. The depths closed me around about. The weeds were wrapped about my head. Verse 6. I went down to the bottoms of the mountains. The earth with her bars was about me forever. Yet hast thou brought up my life from corruption, O Lord my God. It's interesting that it actually says here the bottoms of the mountains, and I think Patty, you had a talk or something about that, or you had some thoughts about the ideas of the mountains below the seas are taller than the mountains that we know of, like Mount Everest and stuff like that. And there's very interesting things with the way that things work, and even it talks about here Earth with the bars, and you talk about the depth and the different pressures that you have upon as you get deeper. And it's interesting that way back then, when they had no technology, there's these things they knew about the mountains below the sea. How did they know that? The bars and the different kind of depths and the different pressures. So you look at the Lord's hand in even Jonah's prayer here. Verse 7, when my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came in unto thee into thine holy temple. They that observe lying vanities forsake their own mercy, but I will sacrifice unto thee with the voice of thanksgiving. I will pay that I have vowed. Salvation is of the Lord. And the Lord spoke unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah unto upon the dry land. So we see Jonah is in a tough spot. He's going through some difficulties here that we can all go through. We can have troubles, whether from our own making, like with Jonah here. Um, or we can go through troubles that's none of our fault at all. That's out of our control. We have no control over it, and sometimes they're the scary ones because we don't know where it ends. Um, and we've all been at a low point at some point in our lives, and how we act and how we what we do will determine if we get out of that or if we stay there. Perhaps even get worse, deteriorate. And I know Pastor Anthony always says that when it comes to like sadness and fear and all those sorts of things, it's okay because they're normal human emotions. We're going to get depressed sometimes. We're going to maybe get upset. We're going to get perhaps even depressed about things or get angry about things. But we need to move on from that. And we're going to move on into better things because we're not going to survive. We're not going to continue forward if we don't move on, of course, like we all have. And I want to make sure that we're not allowing, and again, what are we made of? Are we going to get through these trials and whether the trial is our fault or not? And you look at Jonah here through his own cowardice and stupidity, I guess. He got himself into this situation. He was too scared to go to Nineveh. So he fled from the Lord. So he obviously feared Nineveh more than he feared the Lord in that sense. Um, and he was stupid, of course, going against God's word. And he got himself into a bad spot, like we all can do. It's just human nature to go against the grain sometimes. We find ourselves a little bit stuck. But we see that he turns to the Lord. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't throw his toys out of the pram, so to speak. He turns to the Lord, even though he made a mistake. And it's easy to get angry. There's a scriptures in, I think, Proverbs that says, "The way of a man is right in his own eyes." So even though sometimes you can get yourself into the problems, you can still get angry at other people for it. But we've got to make sure we're not like that. We're not going to get angry about things happen in life. Whether we have control over it or not. But we can see with Jonah's prayer, his prayer starts with contemplation. He thinks about the position he's in. He thinks about the troubles that he's going through. He thinks about the perhaps even how he got there. Maybe with Jonah's case, he knew he did the wrong thing, and he's not going to let that get in the way of the mercy of the Lord, as he says there. And then he goes from contemplation and he goes into thanks and praise for the Lord because he knows the Lord has his back. Even though that he did the wrong thing, he knows that the Lord's going to get him out of that situation he got himself in. And we get it, even we do the wrong thing. We know that the Lord's with us. He loves us. He cares about us, and He wants to see us succeed. He wants to see us get through this life. And if we're not made of the strong stuff, the tough stuff, we can crumble. We can fall. We can end up falling in a heap. And we're not going to talk about it, but even in good times, are you made of the tough stuff to be able to withstand the good times? Because sometimes the good times can be even more dangerous spiritually. We're going to make sure that we're always going to be strong to the best of our ability. He knew his foolishness, Jonah, and he turned to the Lord. And he sought the Lord. And you see that time and time again. King David, of course, he did the wrong thing. And he was punished for that, but he sought the Lord and he didn't turn away from the Lord. He didn't allow the mistake that he made to stop him from getting the mercy of the Lord. And he was made of strong stuff. He was made of tough stuff. King David, of course, we know his story. So if you want to go to Jonah, sorry, we're already there. John, chapter 2. So we're going to pivot away from that for a second in John chapter 2. uh, John chapter 2 and in verse 13. It says here, and the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem and found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves and the changes of money sitting. And sometimes people, maybe even religious people, even people with spirit filled, they can kind of make the house of God into something that's carnal, right? The carnal, which is the things of well, money and buying and selling, and you often come to a castle if you're going to do a tour. They have little trinkets and stuff there, don't they? And they have little things that you can buy, postcards or whatnot. And they've kind of done that for the house of God, literally the house of God, where God dwells. And we'll see Jesus' response to this in verse 15. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, a whip, he drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep, and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overthrew the tables, and said unto them that sold doves, Take these things hence take these things hence, make not my father's house an house of merchandise. And his disciples remembered that it is written, The zeal of thine house has eaten me up. And obviously, the zeal of Jesus got a hold of him. He knew that what's happening was wrong, and he ended up getting rid of it, pushing all that stuff out of that temple. And as we know that we are the temple of the Lord, that we are the place where God dwells. And again, what are we made of? Are we made of the merchandise of this earth? Or are we made of the things of this Lord, the spiritual things that matter? Um, as you look at the metaphor of gold and precious stones that don't melt, that don't get burnt up in fire, they survive. And the same thing spiritually is, are we made up of the merchandise of this earth that's going to be burnt up in the last day? Are we going to be upset when the Lord returns because we've lost everything that we've worked so hard for? Or are we going to be happy when the Lord returns because we've worked so hard towards the Lord's return? And of course, the Lord's going to preserve us, even though that we may make mistakes, but we don't want our house, the temple of the Lord, which is us, to be a temple of merchandise. We want it to be the temple of the Lord, where the Lord dwells and where He's happy and where the Spirit is going to thrive. And we look at Jesus, he didn't have the same value on these doves and these merchandise and the money changers that the people at the temple had. They had obviously more value in the things they were selling or buying than going to the temple to pray to the Lord. And Jesus had a problem with that and he got rid of it. People who were perhaps devout and once cared may have slowly accepted the merchandise, and that can be a bit of a problem. The house of the Lord that we're building here. Sometimes we may have very good understanding, and we may have a zeal for the Lord, but over time, especially when you've been a Lord for a while, we can kind of turn that slowly into the house of merchandise, and we don't want that. And it's something that we can combat by prayer, coming to the meetings, listening to the talks, and keeping ourselves built up. Missing meetings is something when I was younger, when didn't really have an understanding, I used to do quite often. And it wasn't until I actually started praying and having a prayer life that I realized how important meetings were. And I know that we have a Zoom now, but the importance of coming to meetings is you get to tip off all those bad things, and you get to be there for other people and for your brothers and sisters, and you can help them to chip off all of those things of the world that perhaps they took on. And coming to meetings is not about taking, of course, it's about giving and being part of the household of God. We need to be willing to give, and you can do that by coming to meetings and being part of that. And it's important for all of us, and that's what the Lord loves. The Lord loves the fact that you're willing to give, and giving of time can be the hardest thing sometimes. We all have a finite amount of time, and we try to figure out what to do with it. Um, so we are the temple of God, as I said, and we have the power to allow the money changers in, or we have the power to drive the money changers away. We have the power to allow the merchandise, or to chase away that merchandise and make sure that it's not going to cloud ourselves away from the things of the Lord. And if you find yourself in that situation of, "Oh, I think I've accepted a lot of the merchandise of the world," it's just take a step back and think about it, and what can you do to get rid of that stuff? And sometimes it's getting rid of whatever that is. Maybe it's the internet. Maybe you put in too much stuff from other ideas and other things, and get rid of that and get out into nature a little bit, or get out into the creation of the work of what God has created, and start thinking and contemplating on the Lord, and different ways that you can do to get yourself back into the household of God and turn it back into the house of praise and not the house of merchandise. Um, and we can very quickly fill our things with things of this world. And sometimes merchandise of this world can seem good and can seem fulfilling, but it's only temporary, and it's only a quick kind of fix, only a quick kind of happiness, and it will burn away. And I kind of like to call it the puppy happiness. So when you get a puppy, you're over the moon, you're delighted. Then eventually that kind of fades away, and you get back into another kind of rhythm. And I remember watching a while ago, I can't remember what it was. I should try to find it again, but your mind always tries to go back to a normal rhythm. So you got people who win lotto, for instance, they win lotto, they're really happy, right? And because they don't have to work anymore, they don't have to go the 9 to 5 grind, which is probably be the best thing. But eventually they go back to a normal rhythm, whatever that normal rhythm for them are. And it's getting that normal kind of inside happiness, making sure that is looked after. And the way to do that is through the Lord. And the way to do that is making sure that you are keeping that rhythm good, and that you're keeping your baseline happy, and that you are looking at things, Lord. And that doesn't mean that you always got a smile on your face, when you perhaps you missed a bus and you've got to walk to work in the rain. You're not going to be smiling, but inside, where that base kind of rhythm is going. There's other kind of things as well, like say the other side of it. So you got stories of people, if you read stories of the Nazi death camps and the Japanese war camps, where they started off really low, but as you hear these stories, eventually they were able to get back into a normal rhythm. It was kind of a semi-normal rhythm. Obviously, horrible things are happening and they're going down, but the mind always tries to bring you back, whether it's something really good happening or something really bad happening. You've got that rhythm that your mind will go to, and to get happiness properly within is to make sure that you're getting not the quick happiness that will get you only a short period of time that the world can give you, but something that's actually substantial within, something that can actually make you happy, which is praising the Lord and making sure that you have a relationship with God, and with your brothers and sisters as well. And I remember there was a police officer come over to our school when I was a young lad. I think I might have been 12 or 13 or something like that, and he was just talking about the dangers of drugs, and how even marijuana is called the gateway drug because it doesn't seem bad, but it is bad. And how he explained it was, when you get that high, you go up, but eventually you go back down again, and you try to go back to that normal rhythm again. But as you use it more and more, that a rhythm starts to go lower and lower and lower, and eventually you need to get that hit to feel normal again. And you hear that a lot, don't you, with users, unfortunately, and that they're now getting that high just to feel normal like they used to before they began. And sometimes it can be things, not just drugs like that. It can be also other addictions. It may seem like it's good, but we want to be addicted to the Lord because we know that that will always give us good things. We want to be addicted to the things of this, not addicted to the things of this world, sorry, but the things of the Lord, and the things that will make us truly happy. And even in tough times when we're not feeling happy, when we're feeling sad, we've got that joy within us that we can always reach out to. And there's plenty of testimonies even within the Irish Fellowship itself of that through bad things happening, the death of a loved one, that the Lord can give you back that joy again. And whatever the situation is, we're going to make sure we're made of tough stuff. We've got to make sure that we can get through the things of this world. And that's what the most of his talk is about, is that we can go through different things in this world, whatever they are, but it's up to us, and we have that power to be able to build a strong foundation or to build a weak foundation on this world. And sometimes we can get ourselves in a little bit of a rut, a little bit sometimes with work or whatever it is. Work can really do it for me. And sometimes we need to get ourselves out of that somehow and make sure that we're back into that spiritual rhythm. Make sure that we got that rhythm of the Lord going on and not the rhythm of the world. That we can stay on an even keel and a good place, even in bad times. Let's go to First Peter, last chapter. First Peter chapter 1. First Peter chapter 1 and in verse 18, just a few verses here. For as much as you know that you were not redeemed with corruptible things as silver and gold from your vain conversations received by tradition from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Christ, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. Now we know that there's something far more, and we talk about silver and gold and precious stones, but we know that what we have is far more valuable than that, and that what we've been given freely without anything that we deserve, apart of course obeying through the waters of baptism, that we've been given this gift that is far more valuable than anything else. And you look at the simplicity of what we have, but also the power of what we have as well, and the things that we've all gone through in our lives. Auntie with his drug addiction when he was younger, and perhaps others who have gone through other kind of issues and other problems, whether it's through family or perhaps with the things of the mind. That what we have, the power that we have, can get us through all of that if we let the Lord. If we don't try to shorten the Lord's hand by doing it ourselves, because if we try to do it ourselves, we're pushing the Lord away. We store valuables in safes, don't we? So if you have gold or something precious, you put it into a safe to make sure no one steals it and no one takes it. And we put value on things, and that's what we're going to do with the spirit and what we have. We've got to value it as much as we would with gold and silver, putting it in a safe. And of course, it's a little bit different. Obviously, we know the parable of the talents, that we've got to use the talents, and we go, perhaps we start off with two or three. We've got to end up hopefully with four or six or whatever it is, as we know that parable of the talents. And we've got to produce fruit, don't we? But we also need to guard what we have. And the spirit is such a precious thing. And we guard it by making sure that we don't let that world in. We don't let the merchandise of the world in. We don't let the things of this world to corrupt us and to turn us into a house of merchandise. Um, when the Lord comes, will we be mourning that we've lost everything on this earth, or will we be rejoicing that we've worked so hard to build the foundation for the Lord? Lord's come back finally, and that's kind of a good way of looking at it. Is when the Lord returns, are you going to be mourning the loss of your big house and your fast cars and your bank account and whatever it is, your fame, whatever it is you have? We're going to be rejoicing when the Lord returns, and you've got to make sure that we're made of tough stuff, strong stuff that we can withstand the world, whether it's good times or bad times. We've got the tools already being given to us to be able to withstand the things of this world and withstand those times, and we've just got to make sure we continue to grow strong and stronger, and we do that by being with each other within the fellowship here. Or of course, if you can't make it to the fellowship, we've got the Zoom if we have to. But yeah, we'll leave it there. Amen. Amen. All right, very good.